Hello, my name is Andrew Weaver from NEHC Academy. In this video, I'd like to talk to you about your immune system, at least from the standpoint that we see the immune system with NEHC Academy and New Earth Healing Center. We primarily use weighted tuning forks like this as a vibrational method for healing, and also unweighted tuning forks. When it comes to the immune system and understanding our body in general, we focus in NEHC Academy primarily on fascia and fluid when it comes to many physical conditions, anywhere from pain to mobility restriction. But there's also our ability to be able to help the body get over a lot of things that would be maybe sickness related, acute sickness, and of course chronic as well. And there's such a big focus right now on viruses and those things that go along with viruses that stay in the body for a very long time, and you end up with conditions like pneumonia. And if you take a look at what the people across the globe are having the hardest time with, and what sorts of people are having the biggest problem with these viruses that are going around in the flu-like symptoms, a lot of the common thread here is the fluid. For example, people are passing away of symptoms associated with pneumonia, or it may be, high blood pressure gets too high, so now you have hypertension. And a lot of those things are just a function of fluid itself. And when I'm talking about interstitial fluid, and that's something that we work with all the time for pain and mobility restrictions. The different techniques that we teach and that we use, I'll talk about them a little bit more at the end of this video. But for right now, I want to focus on maybe a different understanding of the immune system. Go from the definition of what people understand the immune system is, and then I see a lot of information out on the internet right now on here are the things you can do to boost your immunity and to boost your immune system. One of the things to think about here is we may have different mechanisms for ingesting certain things or doing certain things with our body and moving and certain actions we may do, or certain actions we may steer clear of, so that our immune system stays up and it stays running and it gets boosted. A lot of those things that we do and that we've done throughout our entire lives to boost our immunity or our immune system, it would be done and it would actually work better if we were in good physical condition. That's one of the things to consider. If they were things that we would have used to boost our immune system, they would have worked most likely if we were not already in a certain form of or a condition of fluid related, or we may have already been sick, or we may have already had some conditions that would have made any attempt to boost your immune system that much more difficult. There's a fluid factor here that I wanted to talk to you about that I don't hear being discussed quite a bit or hardly at all on the internet. And I just wanted to show you the way that we see the immune system, and that we see the ability to overcome some of these challenges that happen, especially when it comes to viruses, bacteria, and things of that nature, sicknesses that you could possibly have. So let me move this picture down to the side. All right, so on this screen, what I've done is gone into Wikipedia and looked at what is the definition of your immune system. And it says it's a defense system, and it's comprised of biological structures, or many biological structures, and processes within an organism, that'd be us, that protects against disease. Another thing that Wikipedia also said is that our immune system detects pathogens and identifies them as different from healthy tissue. And then there's a layered defense system. There's some things that we know of that could protect us against any pathogens And by pathogens, I mean anything that you would think that would cause you to be sick: viruses, bacteria, any foreign substances, poisons, and things like that that would get into our body. Those are all put together into the same pathogens understanding. One of the biggest layers of defense for us is physical barriers. That would be our skin is probably the biggest physical barrier, but then we have all these holes in our body where we can bring things in from the outside, viruses and bacteria to be two of them. We can breathe things in. We can bring things in through, the holes. And the holes in our body have these mucous membranes and basically the way to keep a lot of that bacteria and things from getting in, and viruses, is this mucous membrane and mucus that gets secreted that tries to capture some of those things before they get into our system. That's kind of like the first line of defense. That's one of the reasons why we're told to wash our hands a lot and to keep our hands away from our face, because we have more holes in our head than any other part of our body. At least I hope that's the case. And so that first part is the physical barrier. And then there's basically two layers after that. There's an innate layer, and that would be the first thing that happens when we get an inflammatory response. When there's this pathogen that is detected, that's within this first innate layer, and it happens almost immediately. For anyone who's had an allergic reaction that seems like it's right away, that would be that innate defense mechanism as part of your immune system. And that innate response is very non-specific. That response doesn't quite know what your body knows already about maybe a previous response. Sometimes we have an oversensitivity to certain substances, and we become allergic to them. Our body knows we're allergic to them, and we already have this coded response to certain pathogens. Well, prior to that, or before that even happens, in identifying what the threat is just a non-specific, generic, or general response, which is called your innate immune response. There is a pattern recognition, and there are cells in our body that look for patterns to determine whether it's a pathogen, whether it's something that is not right, it's not supposed to be there. Those patterns are part of that innate system to identify if something's not right, if this is a foreign substance, a pathogen. And then within that innate system, response system, is also what we would know of as inflammation. And I'll talk a little bit deeper about inflammation in the next slide. Then we have, after that, so the innate system, it triggers the adaptive system. And in the adaptive system, it's a little more delayed. That's where we might find where we come in contact with someone who has a virus, and we intake that virus in whatever way, or bacteria. And it usually takes maybe a day or two. Whatever that delay may be, that's part of your adaptive system that kicks in, your immune system that kicks in. And there are mechanisms there to recognize pathogens that our body has already built up an immunity to. So that's the adaptive system. And from that system, there is definitely a memory associated with it. And another difference between that first mechanism, innate, and the secondary mechanism, adaptive, is what mechanisms are used to deal with these pathogens. In innate, it may be a little more towards your white blood cells are more of the largest response, leukocytes, white blood cells. And there's also, in the secondary system, there's different cells and antigens and T cells and more cellular activity. There's a lot going on in the whole immunity or immune reaction, both innate and adaptive. And it has a lot to do with signaling agents, which triggers some other, let's say, an inflammatory response, and then that response, other things are reactive to that. So what I'm really talking about right now, so let's focus on our immune system when it comes to when it comes to the initial responses and then what happens to your body over time.